Hey guys, today I just want to make a real quick video about putting in an offer to purchase a home. Real quick before I dive into it, I just want to give you guys a reminder that these contracts are legally binding contracts, but we do have contingencies in place so that way you can back out of the deal if you need to. So the first thing you think of when you think of an offer in purchasing a home is the purchase price. Each home has a different situation depending on if there's a lot of buyers in the market who want that home or if there's not. So just depending on the situation is going to determine whether or not we're going to be more competitive and offer over the asking price, under the asking price. Also, it's going to be based off our other terms and conditions in the offer as well. So the second thing is the EMD, which stands for Earnest Money Deposit. This is typically 1% of the purchase price that's going to be held into an escrow account during the deal. Basically, you can think of an EMD as a promise to the seller that you're not going to back out of the deal outside of your contingencies. This money is going to come back to you at the end of the closing. It's going to go towards your closing costs and your down payment. It also is going to come back to you if you back out of the deal due to one of your contingencies. Speaking of contingencies, the third thing I want to talk about is the inspection. So when it comes to the inspection, you're typically going to have 7 days or whatever we negotiate in the offer to get it done. So what that means is if we get our inspection done on the third day, it's only going to take about a few hours. You're going to have 4 days to determine what you want to do. I explained it in the first video, but in case you didn't watch it, you basically have 3 options. The first option is you can ask for the seller to fix it. The second option is you can ask for the seller to come down in price or give you concessions. And the third option is you can back out of the deal entirely. So the next talking point that comes to putting in an offer is the appraisal. Now, if we're writing a conventional offer, there's not much to talk about. But if you're an FHA or a VA buyer, we do have that inspection during the appraisal, the health and safety one, that's going to come up with issues possibly. So when we write our offer, what we're going to include is an FHA or VA addendum. And what it'll state is which party is going to pay first up to however much we agree upon. And then the other party is responsible for the rest. Additionally, the VA also has a required pest inspection that must be paid for by the seller, and any issues that are found are going to be negotiated at the time. So the next thing you can negotiate in an offer is concessions. Again, this is cash back at closing from the seller, and depending on your loan type and how much you're putting down will determine the maximum amount the seller can contribute towards your closing costs. So in all these scenarios, the seller concessions cannot go towards your down payment, only your closing costs. And just a quick breakdown of how much you can get. If you are a conventional buyer and you're putting less than 10% down, you can get 3% concessions. If you're putting between 10 and 25% down, you can get 6% concessions. And anything 25% or above is 9% concessions. If you're an FHA buyer, you can get 6% concessions across the board no matter how much you're putting down. And if you're a VA buyer, you can get 4% concessions. However, you can get more depending on the scenario. After that, I just want to touch on appliances real quick. In 90% of the homes we see, appliances are going to stay. The only appliances that typically don't stay are the washer and the dryer. However, the seller can take whatever they want as long as they put it in the listing ticket and inform us beforehand. However, if you do see something in the house that doesn't typically stay and you want it, we can always negotiate that into the deal. Everything is negotiable when it comes to a real estate contract. Another thing that we're going to put into the purchase agreement is how long it's going to take to close. I'll typically put in 45 days from the day we put in the offer, just because we want to play it safe. And if negotiations arise or the appraisal takes longer, we have that little bit of extra cushion. But also keep in mind that we can always close sooner if we can. So the last thing I wanted to add is you can put in whatever contingency you want into this offer. The most typical one we see is that the offer is going to be contingent upon the sale of your home. This would only apply if you have a house to sell and you need the funds from the sale of your house to continue with this purchase. So I just wanted to jump back real quick and talk about the EMD and all the contingencies you have in place to protect you during this deal. The first contingency you have is your inspection contingency. The second is going to be your appraisal contingency. And the third is going to be your financing contingency. Also, if you're an FHA or VA buyer, you have your health and safety inspection contingency that's due at the appraisal. VA also has a pest inspection on top of that. And then you also have an optional contingency that you can put into the contract for anything you'd like that I was just talking about. Typically, that would be reserved for if you need to sell your own house. So I talked about all those contingencies in my first video, except for that optional contingency I was just talking about. And I go over all the different scenarios of what can happen. So if you want to know how those protect you and what you can do if you need to enact those contingencies, I'm going to link the first video down below. So with that being said, if you do have any other questions, concerns, don't be afraid to call, text, or email me at any time. You guys have a good rest of your day.